Hello and welcome to Service Above Self. I'm Clark Mason. The debate on the airwaves often talks about the need of universal health care, Obamacare, don't have Obamacare. It goes on and on. And we've got the luxury of actually having a discussion about that. In many third world countries, this is not the case. Healthcare is not available at all. With us here tonight is Dr. Kevin Norridge to speak about a trip that he took as a dentist to help in South America. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Clark. Appreciate being here.
We're glad to have you. Now, tell us about how you actually got involved with this trip that you took, and how did you hear about it, and how did you get involved?
Well, this particular trip is one of several that is sponsored every year by the University of Connecticut School of Dental Medicine out in Farmington, from which I'm an alumnus. And the fellow who runs the program is a fellow by the name of Ron Albert. He's a dentist in Manchester, a good friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time. And I've been on missions out of the country on dental missions a number of times before this. And I was talking with Ron and I said, do you have room for another dentist? Would you like another dentist to come? And he said, we always have room for another dentist, which was really cool. And on this particular trip, we had 5 senior dentists. I unfortunately am the most senior on this group, but most of us had anywhere from 20 to 30 years of experience in dentistry coming out of school and treating a wide range of ailments, everything from pediatric care to geriatric care and everything in between and all kinds of things. So it was a nice invitation that Ron said, yes, come along. At this point, there were 10 students that were interested in going on this trip. They're third-year dental students. They're really fledgling dentists at this point, barely got their ears, I should say hands wet doing clinical dentistry, and just we're wanting to have more experiences and provide service, just like your organization provides. We also had along a number of other people that were support staff, because no dentist can work by themselves effectively, especially when your primary language is English and the primary language of where you're going is Spanish or some dialect of Spanish. My Spanish proficiency is about like this, and unfortunately, most of my patients' English facility was about like that too, but we were able to communicate a lot of times with hand touch or just the gestures or things. Fortunately, we did have a couple of great interpreters with us who are now going to dental school on their own, which is really kind of cool. One of the people is actually the wife of one of the dentists and the mother of one of the students who went with us. It was quite an interesting experience. The way the program ran is we flew out of Connecticut on a cold Friday morning in March, landed in very hot Honduras, and then traveled to where we were going to be seeing our patients and meeting new friends that we made over the week. And it was kind of a neat experience. Hopefully later on I'll be able to show you some photographs that we have taken along the way.
Now you get yourself to Honduras, and so this is a service that you yourself provide for free, and this is free dentistry to whomever comes to you. Mm-hmm. That's correct?
In fact, I brought along, in fact, it might be even one of the slides if I can move forward. This is us actually getting to the location, and here's the sign which I'm showing you, and it tells the dates which we were going to provide the services at this particular school in the middle of a district they call Camiagua. It's similar to our states in the United States, they call them departments, and their department had the city of Camiagua as well as the state, or I should say the district of Camiagua. And we're working with a school that was from grades 1 all the way up through high school. So we saw really little people as well as more adult kids. But also they would bring in their families, and we would see the whole rest of the family, the mom with several other people, and even grandmoms and grandpops coming in to help provide the services that we rendered, which was kind of cool.
Just to give it a little perspective, if you guys don't show up, what do they got for dental services?
Unless they have a true emergency, whether it's a raging infection that they could go to the hospital for and maybe wait for days to get handled, they don't get any care. Fortunately, most of what we saw was pretty much what I would see in my normal everyday practice here in Connecticut, which was kind of nice, considering we didn't have all the tools that I normally have available to me. Whatever we had brought in on our backs was what we had to work with. Fortunately, we had big packs to carry this stuff. As it went through customs, it was kind of interesting lugging it up onto the table so that the customs agents could take a look and sort through our instruments. And they were the typical things, drills that everybody's afraid of, and picks and all the other stuff that people have. But they were what our tool of trades are, and that's what we did, which is kind of neat. Let me see if I have a picture showing. This is the first day that we got on site. The building to the right is the building we are going to be entering, and this is the group of us as students and our faculty. The shorter gal that's in the middle of the picture was our interpreter guide slash our host, whose name, because it was said in Spanish, I couldn't tell you right now. I want to say it was Francine, but I'm not sure that's correct on there. As we entered the building, this is exactly what it looked like. It was a large hall that they use as a multi-purpose room. You can see there's kind of a stage area and things like that. As we got going along in here, we set up our area for our instruments. You can see instruments down in the foreground, lots of different pairs of gloves and all kinds of things that we would use. And we set it up as routinely as we would in our own normal offices. So we wore gloves, we wore masks, we wore eye protection. So we tried to make it as close to as possible that we could. This is setting up. These are a couple of the students with one of our mentors. When we were first greeted, you can see Randy and the young people also have these necklaces on that were gifts to us, and it also had our name badge on it so that they would know who we were and all like that. What we're doing is sorting out instruments here on the first day, and then setting up. And you can see our patients, instead of nice reclining chairs like you might see at your local dentist office, these are their school tables, which we commandeered from the classrooms, and they're literally lying down. This is a rolled up towel, so they have some neck support and working on a reclined position so that we could work with it. A student and an assistant, a student and an assistant, one of the faculty members, a student and an assistant down on the far table. And so that about 3 or 4 feet in between each we're working on, and instead of having suction, we had spit places, buckets that we could just kind of carry it away with. And we use for cleanup, we use basically Clorox bleach. Bleach is a great disinfectant, and it keeps things going the way they're supposed to go. This is another view. The little black item here is a light source, but each of us were wearing lights on our foreheads, much like miners wear in a coal mine. We wear lights on our forehead so we can actually see into the situation. The University of Indiana's dental school was there the week before we were there, so it kind of pre-set up some of the things. And there's a thing we call a unit. It's what holds our instruments, it's what holds the air pressure that we're going to use to make the instrument spin, and some of the other things. But they're portable. They're much like a MASH unit for dental. So we would set them up every morning, break them down every night, because they use, as I say, it's a multifunctional room, and we would set them up every day. The second day we were there, the jar that we were using to hold our water in somehow got misplaced, and we found another jar. But it's like that movie, the not Space Cowboys, Apollo 13, where they have to rig up things with anything that they've got. Well, we had plenty of duct tape, we had plenty of our regular stuff, and the boys that were helping us, that were college students, in a matter of 5 minutes rigged up the best suction I've ever seen. That was very primitive, but we were able to do that. These are a bunch of the young fellows that I got to know when I was down there. The young fellow that's to the farthest to the left, on his name tag the first day, he had Danny, D-A-N-Y. So all week long I'm calling him Danny. Danny spoke no English and I spoke no Spanish, but he became like a son to me while I was down there, and it was a real lot of fun. Come to find out his real name is Javier, J-A-V-I-E-R, and the last day I gave him one of my personal t-shirts, and I hope some point to be able to see him again in the future. This young fellow actually cured my bursitis in my feet. I challenged him the very first day. Now you have to remember, I'm the oldest person in this whole group, and he's probably one of the younger guys. We challenged him to a soccer game, soccer being a very popular sport. And I don't have a picture of the field that we were on, but he and Juan and a couple of the other boys, we got out there, were playing, and my feet had been killing me. I'm standing on this concrete floor all day. Got out there, within about 10 minutes, my feet felt better than they felt in years. So thank you, Javier. I really appreciate you getting me out there.
Taking a little soccer up.
A little soccer to get it back.
At your home, perhaps?
Get me back into this. This is actually the very last day we were at the school. They hosted us and gave us a beautiful plaque to take home with us, thanking us for being there. Even the paint wasn't dry, so that's why there's some smudges when we had it. It took it about 3 or 4 days after we got back, but it was thanking us for being there. And what they did is they took some of the older students and actually showed us some of their country dancing that they did, and very intricate footwear work. And I don't know if boys and girls in high schools here in the United States hold hands and they dance, but it was very interesting to do these things, almost like square dancing, but very precise and different things. And they got members of us up from the audience to do that. I volunteered not to do that. I didn't want to make them look bad on that. It was good. I'll stop here for a second. You probably have a question, I would guess.
Well, yeah, certainly.
Throw a few things at you, and I
certainly
apologize.
that takes care of the dental part of it. But what I'm thinking about is certainly previously, here on the show we've had guests, other Rotary members who, while not as skilled as yourselves, do participate in National Immunization Days, which is something similar where they, the travel is at their own expense and they go to different countries. Can you tell us about some of the challenges that you as a person have to face when you're down there? Here you are in another country, and certainly, while a little south of Mexico, you hear about things like Montezuma's Revenge. And of course, this is a real bacteriological type of a thing. What type of challenges did you have to face in preparing to go down?
Fortunately, there is a foreign travel clinic that's associated with the School of Dental Medicine and the medical school at the university. And they provide a thorough look-see at the region that you're going to be in. For instance, mosquitoes is a very dominant problem, and there's West Nile, which we know about from here, but certainly carrying other kinds of viruses and encephalitises and all kinds of things. So we had to be inoculated for various things. I took my Hep A, Hep B shots. I also took my H1N1 flu shots because flu is endemic in this area. Also took the regular flu, the H flu that we normally get here, that we see all winter long, the sniveling and all like that. But it runs in this, and it's a warm climate, it runs almost all the time. Later on, I think I have a picture of a photograph of a bug that is in this area that if it lands and it burrows into your skin, lays eggs, and the eggs actually will hatch under your skin. That picture is down further, so we didn't do an inoculation for that. That's a little bit creepy. Drinking water is a major issue. The water which we did drink either had to be chlorinated, or it had to be certified that it came from a factory that was certified that way. So you couldn't just go to a water fountain and drink. You had to have bottled water, or you had to have something that was purified. The water that we used for prep work and things like that was chlorinated with regular bleach, and so it was sanitary, and we used that for disinfection purposes as well as cleanup. We also used a lot of Purell. That's the ethanol-based stuff.
Oh,
we didn't drink a lot of it, but we did use that on there. What was there?
One of the things I found was interesting, and I think it was our past district governor, I think Prasad Menon, was talking about one of the NIDs that he went to, the fact that they were eating fried food where they were. And of course, the first thing you think about yourself, me personally having world record cholesterol, is this is something that you should stay away from. But as
the bug, I'm sorry,
as a foreigner and not being used to whatever the local bugs are, a visible size or less than visible size, this is actually a safer way for you to eat.
Absolutely. We had probably fried food or well-cooked food for every meal. Most meals included rice, plantain, and some kinds of beans. They were usually the black type beans. Did a lot of digestive stuff that way, which was great. Cheese also, fermented cheeses were good. Although one day we were able to go through the marketplace in Comayagua, and we were told not to touch or buy anything because our systems weren't just accustomed to those things.
Right.
And yet there were dried fish of all different kinds, which, as a person just interested in what's going on in the society, I was fascinated by it, but the young people were like, oh my gosh, it smells and this and that, and there were flies every place and bugs of all sorts, and it was on dusty counters and this and that, so it's not something like you might go to find at a local grocery store here. It really wasn't that way. It was a market. They all looked good. We were forbidden to eat any of the fresh fruit unless we actually cleaned it up, that you could peel the fruit off and then eat the insides. If it was something like an apple, don't touch it. You'd have to peel it or whatever. We did have plenty of fresh fruit though, which was great. I'm trying to find Oh, there it is, talking about food that we like. We were able to go out to dinner one night, and that is indeed a fish head of a local game fish. I gave it to the fellow who was the native next to me, and he enjoyed it very much. I didn't even know how to eat it. The broth was wonderful. It went high in butter and fat, and it was very, very tasty. And you can see rice up in the top, and a lot of red sauce. We had a lot of peppered sauces, and I think that added to the flavor and took away some of the other strangenesses that we didn't have.
Yeah, I was going to say,
That's a common brand
Tabasco
there.
sauce.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
something
common
that got a lot of mileage on it, because I think they actually grow a lot of the peppers down there, but then they take them to like the New Orleans area and then ferment them there, and then they go worldwide from there.
And the food is actually very, very good. We were very fortunate that one of the restaurants which we were able to eat in, and I say a restaurant because that was how it was set up, was in a square off of where a cathedral was, and the restaurateur had had visitors from the United States who were very prominent, heads of state from all over the world, as well as some of our State Department people had been there, which is kind of neat. So we felt that we were very state meeting in this restaurant, and the food was wonderful.
Okay, we're going to take a break here in a moment, and we'll come back and talk more about your trip to Honduras here in a moment. So we'll be right back here on Service Above Self.
Salam.
Jam.
Shanti.
We all want the same thing.
Peace.
And Rotary clubs are making it happen through international scholarships to promote peace around the world. Rotary, humanity in motion.
Every child is curious.
George, look what I found.
Turn their curiosity into a lifelong love of learning.
That's a periscope.
It's one of the most important gifts you can share. Create a curious reader.
Oh, you want to build a castle like that one? This is super bedtime reading.
Share a book together today. Visit read.gov.
Welcome back to Service Above Self. I'm Clark Mason. We're speaking with Dr. Kevin Norridge about his trip to Honduras, in which he, in his professional capacity, provided volunteer dental services to the native people down there. I think one of the most fascinating things that you mentioned to me was the fact that in many cases, while perhaps emergency dental services might have been available down there, your visit was in many cases the people of this village the first and only time that they had ever seen dentists, or in this case many dentists at all.
I believe that's probably true. The kind of things that we were seeing, way from young kids all the way to senior citizens, were the kind of things that if they were here in the United States, they would have been treated way before they got to be the seriousness that we saw. We saw all kinds of things from very blown out teeth to just they need a cleaning. One of the things we made sure of was that before anybody had any real substantive care, that they were taken to the boys' room or the girls' room and shown how to use a toothbrush, how to use floss and toothpaste, okay? Some very fundamental things that we in the United States just take for granted. If they get that kind of care, they can sustain for an awful long time without having real professional dental care afforded to them. But here, this was an opportunity for them, and the lines were long, and every day we triaged the group, and they were assigned out to who was felt that could handle those particular circumstances. In fact, one particular day, the triage dentist had evaluated this individual who said she had had pain in this tooth, pain in this tooth, pain in this tooth for an awful long time. And so the triage dentist said, let's make sure we get this person treated. We'll take that tooth out of there on that, because it did have some issues with it. Well, the dentist was triaged to one of our teams, and the lead dentist in that team looked at it and said, that doesn't look like it needs to come out. Pulled over some of the other dentists, take a look at this. I'm not going to tell you what I think, but tell me what you think. And then we'll huddle, and then we'll figure it out. Well, it turned out to be something that we in the United States see quite a bit. It's a stress-induced injury called temporomandibular joint problem. And what it is it gives you great headaches and teeth aches, but it really has nothing to do with the tooth really being infected. It's bumping into something else or clenching or something. And what we did is merely relieve this tooth, and they go, I have no pain now. So it was something very simple that she would have lost that tooth, lost the inability to chew, and then had some problems later on. And unfortunately, they don't have the capability to have a denture made or implants placed that like we do here in the United States, or adequately.
Right, because those things I know that often take several visits, to a dentist around here, and down there you just don't have the time. I mean, how would you compare the number of people that you saw in your visit down there to what you might do in a normal day here?
We were busy. We were busy, but you have to understand that we allowed the students the opportunity to do most of the treating, and only we as the senior dentists were pulled in when it became a little bit over their heads. So beginning of the week, on the Monday morning, they saw 2 patients all morning. By Friday, they were seeing 5 patients per morning, and that's about what I normally see in my dental practice. So they had accelerated their growth and learning curve dramatically in that 5 days by having tutorial with individual dentists every single day, and certainly having enough willing patients to want to have that kind of work done. And there were all kinds of things. As I said, we did bring a laser, which a lot of people aren't even in the United States aren't aware of, but one of our guys is proficient, and so we were able to take off growths that shouldn't be there. We were able to do some minor gum type surgery to help with getting a filling worked. We did other things. We did root canal therapy, which we think of that's a very modern and United States type of thing. Well, I don't want to have somebody running around with 2 missing front teeth. It's hard to talk as it is. And so if we can fix them and give that person the long-term hope of a smile, that'll improve their job capability even there. We did that. And again, for the students to be able to learn that technology while we were there, kind of under the gun, and that was kind of wild. We did have some interesting things. We had some compressors that were running outside, and because it was so hot outside, they would overheat, so we'd have to shut them down for a while, because most of our things run on air pressure, so that was kind of an interesting thing. Although our hands for forceps don't work on air pressure. So
yeah, no, it was probably pretty interesting. Now, dentistry is not the only problem that they have. Other types of healthcare as well are lacking.
Well, there's a fundamental issue about washing and cleanliness and things like that. Although the students who came every day and their families who came every day to be with us were all cleaned up to be ready, we saw lots of places where there were dirt floors, where there were buildings that were inadequate for the number of people that there were. Wash facilities were not adequate to keep their bodies clean and things. Some basic healthcare issues like that. There were some clinics available, government clinics that people could get like inoculations for certain things, but they were really few and far between.
So that definitely makes it difficult to stay healthy down there.
To stay healthy. Also dietarily, because the soil is so poor, because of the amount of rain that they get every year, just really leaches the nutrients out, and the leaf fall just gets washed away, and so that you don't get natural fertilizing kind of capabilities. The nutrient level of the foods tends to be lower too, so that they can't go to the local store and get vitamin tablets either. They have to subsist on what they have. So by way of stature and by way of overall growth, they did not appear as most Americans do, a fairly tall stature, and even though we're overweight because we eat too much, they were overweight because of malnutrition in a lot of cases, which is sad.
So having had a visit there, what's one of the things that you came away with that perhaps you felt changed about or surprised you about Honduras or the entire situation? Or is there one thing that sticks out in your mind that will always be with you?
Gratitude. Single word, gratitude. Every day when I'm in my practice, I do what I do because I get paid to do it, and I do some pro bono work, and those people certainly are thankful that I do that. But most people, when they exchange money for a service in the United States, it's like, you may hear a thank you, but it's not this. The very last days we were there, and every time we completed a service, it was a well thank you. If we looked like we were thirsty, they would bring water that we could drink to make sure that we had adequate. They made sure that we were fed out of their meager means, and we really ate quite well. I don't feel that I suffered anyway in that way. I enjoyed the food that we had, but it was meager. It wasn't fancy. It was subsistence, but it was enough to get us through. And I don't think everybody there has that. So it was a real gift from them to us to do that. Some of the things, like I said, they made this, it's knocked tin over a masonite thing, painted by the students and created out of scraps that they have gotten from elsewhere, building supplies and other things. This little flag that is made, which also has a little thank you, is made out of the tin of a soda can that was hammered flat and then bent around the little stick so that we could have that as our availability. And it was just kind of a neat thing to have that thank you, but you could also see it in their eyes. And just without even having gracias in Spanish or thank you in English, you knew that it was there and you felt good and you felt camaraderie, you felt close. That first scene that I showed you, we're standing back, we're waiting to go in, and they were standing on the other side waiting for us. By the end of the week, it was hands over shoulders and sitting next to each other, whatever we were doing, sharing soccer games, and so that gratitude is really there. My gratitude, too, for being allowed to use the skills that God's given me to do something special, and not everybody gets that chance, and I feel really rewarded by that.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I think that sometimes we do take for granted is that, in spite of the debate over health care and the price of it or things of that nature, generally speaking, there's sufficient health care for most people in the United States. Some of the poorer ones may have some problem with it, but there's plenty around if it's really needed. And it's just making it affordable is kind of the tough thing. Whereas, a place like this, it's
not available.
It's not there. There's not a Yukon around the corner where
right.
dentists like yourself are being trained how to do things. And so from that, we definitely are. Should be grateful for what we have, and certainly, it's the very basics, these basics of health, and it's one of course, the big things that Rotary does around the world is the basics of immunization and making sure that people have clean water and proper sanitation, just so that they can grow up healthy.
Absolutely.
And so these other types of healthcare.
Well, as I say, our logo for the week was helping to heal the world one smile at a time, and we really take that to heart. And I brought it back to my office, and that's really what I've adopted as the rest of my life work is making the world healthy one smile at a time. So I've taken that on, and it isn't just making people healthy in their mouth physically. It's, do they have a smile on their face and know that they feel good mentally, and are they rewarded that way? We saw some great cultural places when we were down there. The history of the Mayans is around the corner. We went to the Mayan ruins on one day, and I was in awe of what there was, this culture that lived for 1,000 years and did great stuff. And then we come back to the cities, and there's these churches that were built by the Spanish conquistadors. They're just huge things, monuments to men in that. The second oldest bell in the Western Hemisphere is in this particular cathedral. I wanted to share what my plan is for next time I go down, which will be next April, is that I want to take some of these students that are there and teach them how could they be dental assistants, how could they help people to learn how to brush and spread this health word. So it's like, you can feed a person a fish for a day, or you can teach them how to fish.
Exactly.
And so this is what part of my mission is to how can I spread this? Okay, I can fix individuals. Can I fix more of the society by training and doing that?
So,
and the word doctor means to lead or to teach.
Exactly.
So that's
so
I take it very
in many
seriously.
cases, prevention is a lot easier.
A lot easier, a lot less expensive too.
Absolutely.
Bar soap floats a long way.
Well, Dr. Norridge, I want to thank you for coming in today.
It's been my pleasure.
And this has certainly been fascinating, and you should be very proud of what you're able to do
And
here.
humble.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually fantastic, and certainly, hopefully, an inspiration to us all. And as we often say here at Service Above Self, as Dr. Norridge has done, is go out there and find a worthy cause and lend a helping hand.